The WYcast is made possible by people going on the ExP homepage, www.exp.uk, and buying my albums on vinyl and CD and getting merch as well. So big thanks to everyone who has. And if you enjoy these podcasts, please consider helping out by going and buying some. Hello, and welcome to the second series of the WYcast. I'm ExP, a hip-hop musician based in West Yorkshire, WY. I made a decision in the last year or so that I should invest time in helping promote and support the West Yorkshire hip-hop scene that I know and love so well. A scene which has supported my involvement in music for over 2 decades. Yes, I am that fucking old. Last season I spoke about my wish to talk to those involved in hip-hop in West Yorkshire, and I said I'd expand my search out to soul and jazz as well, but a spreadsheet I've inevitably put together puts the number of active MCs and producers in West Yorkshire at approximately 200, and I'm finding out about new people every week. Therefore, at this rate, this will probably be a West Yorkshire hip-hop specific podcast for at least the next 7 years? If you're an active and involved West Yorkshire hip-hop artist, I will want to speak to you at some point and find out what it's all about for you. There's not much method to who I choose to get on, but I insist on doing these outside, so there's West Yorkshire scenery in the background where possible. And the weather has absolutely trolled me in a lot of cases. I'm meeting people I have a lot of history with and people I barely know, all with the intention of connecting WY hip-hop artists and giving you, the listener, a chance to know the people behind the great music they make. And on this episode of the WYcast, it's Bane from Don't Talk to Strangers, from Plague, from WY. The guy has been, he's the reason everything's West Yorkshire. WY signed off the studios, signed off my use of it with Synoptic, he signed off the WYcast. He came up with the WY idea in the first instance with a couple of his boys back in the day, and has been responsible for the merchandise that you're hopefully collecting and the sort of general idea of the West Yorkshire Union in general. He's a legend. I say everyone's a legend, but he is a legend. And yeah, we have such a good chat here. We've got loads of history. We go way back. We were both sort of almost started out together, although he's a little older, so he started out earlier than I did. So yeah, he was doing big things and one of the first people putting out records around here and stuff. Super positive dude, doing some amazing things. Please get on board. Please go buy some WY merch. Please go and buy some stuff from Plague. And here comes the podcast. Bane, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, man. Good to see you, man. Finally, thanks for bringing me to Yorkshire Sculpture Park. I think it was the right shout, man.
Beautiful spot.
Despite the £9.50 entrance fee, non-refundable. I'll be putting that through business expenses, bro. Yeah. Bane, man, this is a significant moment for me because, as far as the origins of WY and West Yorkshire and the whole logo and all those things concerned, you're the big cheese and one of the big cheeses behind it, man. But I want to do the origin story with you for people who aren't too familiar with it. And what was your birth year, bro? When were you born, bro?
1979.
Oh, 79. Okay, cool, nice. Because you guys were bubbling on with some hip hop while we were coming up. So I remember me and J&D coming up 2006, and I remember you guys were, he told me about you guys, and you guys were already doing shit then and already putting stuff out. When did you grow up in Wakey? Are you Wakefield?
No, Dewsbury.
Dewsbury, of course. In fact, when I knew of you, you were still in Dewsbury, I think. What was the journey to rap, man, for you? How did you get into hip hop?
It was a bit of a strange one. We'd seen people it was a very anti-hip hop area.
Dewsbury.
Quite
anti-hip hop, yeah.
Very right-wing, white area growing up.
Yeah.
There were a few people who used to break dance near the local park, and that were probably the very first intro.
Nice.
Other than that, it was seeing graffiti art on the M1 whenever we were travelling everywhere.
M1, no
down
way.
On the motorway bridges.
So what, as a kid, just seeing it and that?
Seeing that, and I became slightly obsessed with it. There were a couple of us at school who loved hip hop, got into the early 90s artists, back end of sort of Run DMC stuff, early Cypress Hill, things like that.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky that my art teacher were really sort of invested in the pupils. So he actually bought me my first set of spray paint. He bought me boards and everything to set up and try painting.
Wow.
So I became really, really obsessed with graffiti art.
Yeah.
And that led into the music, basically.
Right.
It led into rap music.
What did you used to write?
I used to write Bane.
No way.
So it's always... The name actually came from me and a friend at high school. When we were about 13, we named each other. So I can't remember what I called him now, but he called me Bane then.
What was his reason? Had he been reading some Batman? Or?
It was literally from the Batman comics.
Yeah, well, right,
so
okay.
It was just
because I didn't even realize there was a bad guy called Bane.
Yep.
I'm sorry to not be a comic dude, but like until the Dark Knight and all that, and there was the Bane bad guy, and I was like, oh, hang on. There's already a Bane, but then Bane's got its own meaning, hasn't it? So I assumed you took it from like the sort of old English usage of it.
No. I did start using that as the sort of tagline on social media later on, the dictionary definition. Of it.
Right, that might be why I think that's the case.
No, it did come from the Batman comics.
So your mate calls you Bane, and then you're like, cool, like that, feeling that, and then drawing off the back of it.
Yeah, drawing off the back of it, and then sort of rap came along. We discovered it. And we'd not actually dabbled into trying to rap ourselves until we started hearing the early British groups like Hijack and Killer Instinct.
A lot of people talk about Hijack as their influences. Man.
They were a gateway for me, but Killer Instinct were the group that connected.
Okay.
It was the really rapid, fast rhymes and like the dark subject matter, which always sort of resonated with me. So it was me and Murray P.
Yep.
Right back then. And
what age is this?
13, 14.
Oh, okay,
so,
right. So he was at high school with you, was he?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
He wasn't the guy who called you Bane?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was someone else. So yeah, we just started rapping together. We started recording tapes that we'd like hand out in the local area and stuff like that. So we were on the trying to put physicals out from like day one. You know?
So what beats were you on then?
We were just using instrumentals off the CDs we were buying. So the first tape we did was literally just Killer Instinct instrumentals.
Nice.
And us rapping over the top of them.
Yeah,
so.
and you'd recorded that onto what, like a mini disc or a...
we used to literally, from the old Wu-Tang story of 36 Chambers, headphones through the mic socket onto a stereo. So.
Man, have you still got them tapes? I bet they sound raw as fuck.
I've got one of the covers and the actual shell, but no cassette in it anymore. So.
Ah, damn. Okay, so first tapes with... So when was the first time you were rapping on like beats, I guess, proper beats?
Ooh.
Ones that weren't someone else's?
That were probably when we started making Disabled Blue.
Right.
So that were quite a long time afterwards. We just rapped on other people's instrumentals for ages.
Okay. And what was you? So what when you were rapping on other people's instrumentals and putting them out on tape and distributing them, were there other things you were on with? Were you like turning up to nights? Were there any nights for you to go to? We having to leave Dewsbury.
Very, very early. Nothing in Dewsbury. No, I think the only ever hip hop night there's been in Dewsbury we put on ourselves.
Yeah. I think I might have gone.
Yeah. I think you did to some of them. No, it was. Like the first things we started going to really were there were a night called Asylum,
right,
which used to be in Charlie Parker's, which were like a jazz club in the bottom of the Corn Exchange.
Right.
So they'd have a skateboard ramp in the actual club, and it was hip hop and like hardcore punk. So it like catered for the skate scene mainly.
Yeah.
We used to go there. Breadbinz, which is when I first met you and Luke properly.
So it feels like Breadbinz was the initial time that kind of the West Yorkshire scene almost met.
Yes.
It seemed like the opportunity for out of towners to cut. Everyone kind of came to Bradford, and there was that time. There was usually like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock till midnight was the hip hop, and then 12 till 2 or whatever was the drum and bass. So everyone was kind of catered for, and there was always DJs producing.
Well, Dr. Krob seemed to be reaching out to people to try and make that happen, to try and get them over. He got in touch with, I believe, Livewire, who goes by the name of Galvatron now. He does like drum and bass and stuff. So he got in touch with him. He was someone that hung about with us socially. He suggested that we started going over there. And I think that's the first night I properly met you when we saw Cappo play there.
Shit, I know exactly what. Yeah, I know exactly which night you mean.
And the two of Cappo, Lady Paradox.
Oh, Lady Paradox, she's still going.
Apocryphy.
It was all Nottingham crew, wasn't it? Almost. He brought a whole crew through, innit?
And then I think me and you ended up freestyling over the Learn to Be Strong instrumental of Cappo's Spaz the World.
Well, that is an incredible memory. That does sound correct, because I'd rap over anything back in those days. I would just jump in on mics for the fun of it. Man, that is so fucking long ago. I can't believe you remember that. But just going on the Dr. Krob, it is amazing what he achieved in what was the early 90s, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, without the internet, managing to get crews from Nottingham to perform to a group of crews from West Yorkshire that he pulled together in Bradford.
Yeah. And the venue as well, do you know what I mean?
spot?
Just basically a basement.
Yeah. Horrible basement. But it was
flooded toilets.
Yeah. But people were smoking down there. It was
yeah.
just everything. And there was just no one checking up. It was cool. And there was no bullshit down there.
Well, there even Dynamo used to come down.
Yeah.
That were like one of his starting points.
Do you know what?
I remember him coming and trying to do tricks for people and everyone just telling him to fuck off, you know.
I'm literally about to put a podcast out with a Jack. By the time you watch this, there'll be a podcast out with a Jack where he said the same thing. We didn't mention Dynamo at all in Series 1, and in Series 2, everyone's going, oh, yeah, Dynamo knocking around. We're all telling him to fuck off. Fucking just 6 minutes standard. But yeah, he was at all the hip-hop nights back in those days, to be fair to him. He fancied himself as a bit of a rapper as well, I think. So he was like, he did a bit of that as well. So yeah, man, so Breadbinz, you're coming across for that, and then you started, you must have been starting to put physical stuff out. Well, you must have been starting to think about putting physical stuff out then in early thousands. When was that first physical release?
The first, we put out an awful physical release called Council Pop, which were a mixtape of us rapping over American hip hop and R&B instrumentals.
Nice.
Fully self-produced CD. We manufactured and printed them ourselves, you know.
Nice.
And we shifted absolutely loads of them, in fairness. You know, all the record shops, every area.
People wanted to know by then, yeah.
We just trekked around. Sort of the same time, Elefino had just put out of Phase, which were his first CD EP, and that was my introduction to like Wigs and Pro Optic.
Because he was Leeds, he was Leeds, and you'd heard through him, right? Okay.
We sort of from very early on, we caught on to the concept that Yorkshire had 5 boroughs in the same way that New York does. So there were a few people banding around the New Yorkshire concept at the time. Yeah. And that's sort of basically where the WY logo came from, do you know?
The idea of unifying those.
Of unifying the areas.
5 boroughs, I'm just going to try and guess them. Bradford, Leeds, and then Huddersfield kind of way?
Kirklees, Calderdale and Wakefield.
Right, and Wakefield.
So they're the 5 borough councils of the area.
Exactly. They're the official boroughs anyway of West Yorkshire. Yeah. I see. Nice. So, you'd seen this New York thing going around, and so at what point did you go slap a WY on it? Or who came up with the idea of the logo? And
it was just before we'd done the Council Pop mixtape, and we'd come up with the Don't Talk to Strangers logo, the logo for the collective at the time. It wasn't actually a label then. Yeah. And like every release we bought had the lovely little runner logos across the back, and we really wanted that. Yeah. So it literally came about one really late night. Me and Dad sat in the attic of his house in Batley. Yeah. And we'd been trying to think of how we were going to brand this sort of scene. Yeah. Basically. We were looking through logos. We'd seen the New York Yankees logo, and it was particularly one with a drop shadow on it that sort of caught us eye. Yeah. And it was literally like, I just said, cut it in half and flip it the other way. Nice. As soon as we got that, we knew we were onto something. You know? And obviously it's evolved over the years, so it looks nothing like it originally did.
In a flat in Batley.
Yeah.
I love that, man. What year do you reckon, if you had to guess when it was born?
2000. The concept was 2001. It was probably 2002, 2003 when we actually came up with the logo.
And then when was the first time it was on a record or a T-shirt? Not long after.
Not long after. It was 2006. It was on the Disabled Blue EP, which was the first vinyl we put out. Yeah. Then the year after on the WY compilation CD.
Of course.
And then I think it was probably 2008 or 2009 when the first T-shirts dropped.
Right, okay.
So they were a little bit behind.
It's funny how these things just dropped into place, and in my head, I know when, and the cypher started about 10, 11, all these things that just, and then all the battling and people were representing West Yorkshire, and everything just curved at the right time, really, with the label and stuff. And no, you said no pretense. Don't Talk to Strangers. As it was a collective. Who made up that collective at the time it was going to put together?
It was sort of me, Murray Poppins, Dead, who's always been sort of producer and behind the scenes for us. It was us, Matt, who we do WY with now, the WY clothing stuff. Sick. A graffiti crew called UKS. Okay. So we're all the members of them. So it was about, like, it wasn't just about hip hop, about the rap music. It was about, graffiti art and production and DJing and everything, and we were trying to just build a collective of like-minded people.
Yeah.
Originally, the label was going to be called Plague Rhythm.
Interesting.
It came off before we were Don't Talk to Strangers. We were called Tunnel Rats.
Right.
But then we later found out that that was an American Christian hip-hop crew.
Nice.
So we changed the name, became Don't Talk to Strangers at that point. Then the label was always going to be Plague Rhythm, which is what led to me running Plague now.
I see.
And then it sort of just expanded from there. Eventually, it made sense to just use one set of branding, so we just kept the Don't Talk to Strangers name for everything. So.
Yeah, nice. So, when did that move into a label then? Because obviously you had quite a few different artists on there. Or was it always an intention that you'd like put artists out on there, but they wouldn't necessarily be a Don't Talk to Stranger artist as much as that?
Yeah, it was more just about putting out people from West Yorkshire, like. Obviously, you were doing your thing with Synoptic at the time, so you were covering a lot of the people who were in the area, and we were just sort of releasing from other people, that were around. We focused primarily on sort of Dewsbury, Huddersfield initially, and then sort of branded out to Leeds once we met Brutal Artistry. So
was that a big. So it was Brutal Artistry that got you on, because Brutal Artistry worked with both Chief Wiggs and Spider Lee. Our chemistry.
He was super focused with the production. We'd not sort of had an in-house producer who could produce at that level. And create that much stuff for multiple artists at once. So when we met Brutal Artistry. Initially, it was one of those. I think the first time we properly met him, we're at a night at the Ripped Skate Park in Ravensthorpe.
Okay.
Where I think you played
later.
it. Yeah. No, it was at the actual day where the
you
festival
met him then?
was there. That was the first time I'd met him in person.
Mental.
So we put Skinny Man on, and
I remember.
You played, we played, loads of other
Enough
local
played,
people.
Yeah. That was a big double event.
He came over with Spider Lee and Anil MC.
Anil used to knock out with Phil and Marcus. They used to have a crew together. Yeah, he went down to Sheffield, I think. Yeah.
So they came over. I remember. I think the story was they brought girls with them, and we were being really, really strict on the tickets on the doors, and they were wanting free tickets for the girls on the door, and like there were a little bit of conflict over that.
With Brutal Artistry, this is. Okay, nice.
Because I don't know, he can be quite. Like myself, it can be quite confrontational at times, so we clashed a little bit to begin with.
Oh wow, okay, nice. You probably respected that though, if you're like giving him as good as you got.
It was one of those things, and then after that event, I met up with him to pay him for playing on the night.
Nice.
And we just sort of hit it off from that moment. He were already starting to produce for Wiggs then. So it all sort of just merged together at that point.
Because you've seem to have always had his production, like the most recent release you did, entirely produced by him, right? I gel with Mickey's production better than anybody else I've ever come across. Wow.
We're on a complete level when it comes to making music. Like when we made Atlantis, it was very dark time in both of us' lives, but the process of making that album were really cathartic, and it sort of helped both of us through it.
So often the case when I drill down to it with rappers, when they're about their writing and stuff, it's always the catharsis. It's always the therapy of it. Often, especially when it's like an album. I wouldn't say like sometimes you write a track and it's like whatever, there it goes. But like when it's something you've built, especially both coming from a dark place, man, you can kind of tell on that album as well. That line is amazing,
completely. Like we didn't try to hide anything with it. It was very like bare bones as it is. I've always slightly taken that attitude with my music, that if I expose everything bad and all, there's not really much people could. Apart from your skill level, there's not really much people can dish you.
No, absolutely,
criticism of your subject matter.
Don't hide your shame in it, exactly. So in terms of your rapping then, bro, because I met you as a rapper, you were always rapping, no pretense, you and Murray, and then you and even up to Atlantis, your most recent release, which was a few years ago now?
2019.
2019, so it's not that long ago in the scheme of things, 5 years or something, but it feels like you've been just to recording Escar's album and it being a nightmare to drag you out of your house to record a verse.
Yeah.
Where are you with rap in your own head now?
It's a difficult one. Like, I had a period of mental health decline, and the strange thing is, like, when I were in that period, I found writing really easy.
Oh, interesting.
When I came out of that, I struggled.
No way. So happiness has fucked you.
A little bit, yeah, in a way. I think because all I wrote about was dark subject matters, you know,
that is your
drug
shtick, innit?
use and whatever else, and I'm not in that place anymore.
Yeah, I dig it.
And in my head, I'm trying to find where I fit into hip hop these days, you know, but I couldn't not be part of it.
Of course.
So I had to keep on doing. Releasing music, even if I wasn't putting my own music out.
Absolutely.
There, so.
Well, I wanted to come on to that because Plague, the record label that you've created and put quite a lot of releases out on already, is a West Yorkshire based record label, but it isn't necessarily West Yorkshire focused. Or in that you've got artists from kind of here, there, and everywhere. Junior Disprol, you put out his stuff, and are we allowed to talk about the upcoming release of Cappo, who you've managed to sign for an album, which is absolutely amazing? What were your thinking behind Plague then? Because it's cool to know that it came from that. You've always intended to do a record label called Plague. What was your intention to create something like? You know, like high quality all the time and vinyl release, and
it sort of evolved a little bit when me and Mickey were making Atlantis. The original intention was that was still going to come out on Don't Talk to Strangers because it hadn't technically folded then. We'd not released anything for a while.
Been a few years, hasn't it, since?
And we were going to set up a separate label again called Plague Rhythm, harking back to the first one, and we were just going to put out 100 pressings of 7-inch singles that were two different artists, one on each side, produced by Brutal Artistry. All just stamped white labels, nice and cheap, to try get the physicals out there on a regular basis. We recorded loads of tracks for it, like with artists from New York. Cappo were on one of the tracks.
Nice.
And then sort of that fizzled out the idea a little bit. I went back to the drawing board with it, and I decided that I wanted to put out really high-end physicals.
It shows.
I'm a massive record collector, and a lot of releases, I don't feel that the physical product is anywhere near as good as it could be. So, like, I was less bothered. Always been less about profits and more about the art form for me. So,
of course,
I wanted the vinyl to have lyric sheets with them. I wanted like coloured floods inside the sleeves. You know, coloured vinyl, everything like that. And the concept was, I'm a big fan of sort of the alternative hip hop scene as well, from all over the world, like Arm & Hammer, Billy Woods, LP, you know. And I felt there were a lot of artists from the UK who fell into that category, who weren't necessarily getting the opportunity to release on vinyl anymore. Junior Disprol had been on our first ever record on Don't Talk to Strangers. He's on the Disabled Blue record. On
He's always been in and around your workings, and even doing artwork and stuff for people.
He's done artwork. He did the inner sleeve art on the No Pretense first album. He did all the artwork on the Horror Epics EP. He features on the Horror Epics EP. So we've been like really good friends for years. We're both like sort of workhorses. Both of us like to just be at it all the time. And he's an incredible artist as well. So we connected on that level. You know, we both do art, we both do sculpture. So he was the number one person I had on my list. Cappo came along. We'd met Cappo at the gig we mentioned earlier.
In Breadbinz in 2002, isn't it?
And he blew me away that night. And Spaz the World is still to this day, you know.
It's regarded as top 10 UK hip-hop releases.
Unbelievable release. So, like, I worked with him again later on an Iron Monkey track.
No way.
It's me and Cappo with Iron Monkey doing the production and DJ SD doing the
is that out?
On it. Yeah, it's been out for a few years.
It's on streaming and
it
that?
Is, yeah.
I need to keep my eye on that, man.
It's called Inject the Beat. It samples Silver Bullet.
Okay.
On the chorus.
Right. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that,
But yeah, it's quite an electronic song. It's not really traditional. It's not like boom bap hip hop or anything.
Iron Monkey kind of
Iron
style,
Monkey
yeah. Well,
did
you never
that
know
a
what. Well,
lot to
you
start
you
with,
do know
you
what you're
know.
going to get with Iron Monkey, and it won't be normal,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. So yeah, we did that together, and then after then I booked Cappo for loads of gigs in Leeds. So we did like when we were doing the Disgracelands nights.
Right.
So we had him at the Elbow Rooms. We had him at Tony Green's Sedgwick Avenue night.
Nice.
And, yeah, you know, so we just got to know each other doing that. He was another person less in the alternative category than maybe Junior Disprol, but very like artistic.
He's in that.
Descriptive and lyrical. So
Yeah, exactly.
I basically approached him beginning of last year, I think, about releasing an album on the label. He was on with making the album with Kong the Artisan that he's doing now, that he released in December, the Canon album.
Okay.
So he basically told me he'd done a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah.
And there were a creative component of it where he'd recorded 3 albums, a trilogy that tell the story, the same sort of, that emphasise the same points he was trying to make in the PhD study.
Yeah.
They were like the creative component of it. So he asked me if I'd like to hear these 3 albums.
Wow.
When I got the first album, I can say the name now because we'll have revealed it by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
The first album's called Starve.
Right.
When I listened to the album, I almost felt personally attacked.
Right.
Because it is so personal, and it literally felt like you were talking about my life.
Whoa.
It's a very, very unique release, and I'll let you have a listen to it.
Well,
in
I'm
advance,
interested
but,
to. Yeah, I'm trying to decide why it's personal attack. So, like, the subject matter was like, is he trying to? I suppose you can't say too much about it.
I can give you a little bit, like the basic gist of it. It's about isolation, but how isolation isn't an individual experience; it's a collective experience.
Ironically.
Yeah, so that's the basic concept with it. It's really raw, really to the bone, vulnerable. You know, it's an amazing release, and like the early feedback we're getting on it with the people who have heard it is mind blowing.
And is it one of 3? Did you say?
One of 3.
And have you got all 3?
I've got all 3, one after the other. We're going to release them in sequence.
Okay.
And then at the end of them, there'll be like a deluxe box set version where you can get all 3 of them together, packaged together.
Mate, that's the plague dream, isn't it? Like having them all like that. I can imagine that's going to be great. Little liner notes written by him, I would hope. And
well,
all
there's
that
going to be
sort
a
of
book at the end as well with the box set. There'll be a full hardback book with the PhD document in it, loads of additional text by.
And the
Cappo
PhD
stuff,
was about isolation as well.
No, the PhD. I think the thesis particularly was about how rappers use literary techniques to convey personal trauma. So Cappo now teaches this. He teaches music. He's a university lecturer teaching music.
No way.
He uses these and Nas and Kendrick Lamar and people like that.
Yeah.
As a way of teaching this to the students.
What a fascinating guy, and what a beautiful thing to use hip hop for on that level, man.
I'll send you it later today once we've done with this, but it is incredible.
What university is that?
Nottingham University.
Nottingham University. And you know what? There'll be some kids in that class who don't even turn up to the lectures.
Yeah.
Fucking wasted there. That's where your tuition fee is, man. That's worth your tuition fee. You got Cappo schooling you about that sort of stuff. Amazing, man. Well, what a coup for you guys at Plague. I know you've had your eyes on other people in West Yorkshire potentially down the line, but we won't talk too much about that. But obviously, there's a lot bubbling on and a lot of possibilities really with. Is it just yourself who runs all Plague? Have you got a few?
It's me mainly. I do the majority of it. Iron Monkey is like my sound expert. He obviously has his own label, MDR Records, that he releases his own stuff on, and he's released some Escar bits on there as well.
Well, he mixed and mastered all his.
Well, he masters all the albums we put out now.
Does he?
He
Yeah,
masters
nice.
most of the Junior Disprol stuff. He's mastered the first Cappo album, and then he's mixing and mastering the other 2. So he does all the audio stuff. I've got Dead, who were on Don't Talk to Strangers with me, who does like, he handles like the digital side of things for me and stuff, because I'm not a massive fan of spending a lot of time on computers.
I get
prefer,
it.
like, using my hands for things. So it's like, I do struggle with that side of it a little bit. So it's mainly us three that sort of
That's dope as hell,
do it
man.
all, so.
So my personal experience of putting records out has been very. So the first official. I mean, I was on a couple of vinyl before, but the first official one we did was 12. Was a Flame Griller one, which was like the amalgamation of 1 and 2. And strangely enough, it was like no one really gave a fuck. And then we sort of got some help from a label, and then suddenly everyone got on it. I think there were a few things that happened around the time that helped, and then it sold out. And then I started putting shit out, and my first 2 flew off. People couldn't get enough of them. And then COVID happens, and then we come out the other side, and the luxury industry is fucked. To a point where, and people aren't really putting their hands in their pockets, and understandably so, to buy vinyl and merch and all the rest of it, because their mortgage has gone up by 400 fucking quid or whatever.
And the energy bills and whatever else.
Or any of that BS that you hope will resolve itself at some point. But you kind of get it. Now, have you found there being an impact on your record releases?
100%. Like, when we put the first couple of releases out on Plague before the lockdown, they sold much easier.
Right.
We've sort of equaled the numbers with the later releases, just because we've got a bigger following now. But it can be a grind, and there's no consistency to what works with one release to working with another one. Like, you can't just repeat
the same
the promotion campaign.
I'll just send it to these 3 PR.
It doesn't seem to work that way. So, like, we try to do the things that worked again and avoid the ones that didn't, and then we'll be totally surprised again, and it just won't do the same thing with the next release. But there's a definite impact. I'd say the cost of living thing has been much worse for it. I watch artists who would sell out in minutes. Take it like Jest, Lee Scott, Lee Scott still does unbelievably
numbers,
well. Like, latest album, I just watched him do 600 copies in a couple of weeks.
That's infuriating.
Yeah, it is, but it's inspiring.
It's amazing. It's amazing that he's accomplished.
I love watching, like, when you blew up with the first one, the first LP you released, and
that was
when you did your journey, around delivering them to people.
Yeah,
it's like little niche stuff like that. It separates you from what everyone else is doing.
Yeah,
like,
fully.
I just see it as all being inspirational. Like, I love it when everyone from the area gets on, like Luna doing well, and
it's lovely that, isn't it?
Just know, with his new album, it's just like.
Well, this is a good reason to come back to talking about WY, because fundamentally it is about the community championing one another, and when they're doing little things, the problem is, someone will do something and it's like, oh, that's amazing, and someone will do something and you're like, no one gives a fuck. This guy's amazing though, and that pisses me off, because one guy's accomplishment isn't necessarily better than another. Although obviously in some cases there are some of the things some West Yorkshire artists have done. You've just mentioned Luna, it are just like off the fucking chart. You know what I mean? And unaccomplishable again almost because of the time that they were done and all the rest of it. But I feel like the West Yorkshire community, it's so important for us all to be like knowing who each other are, and also like big in the you're not seeing that as going, because I think there's that temptation to be like, they're doing well, fuck those guys.
Oh, totally. I think that's right across the board with UK hip hop. And I think it's one of the reasons we've not succeeded where like Grime has. The scene were much more supportive. I feel from watching it from the outside. With UK hip hop, there seems to be that as soon as somebody starts doing well, like you say, everyone's just like, fuck that, I'm not supporting them anymore. And it's a perception that there's not enough for everybody, but I don't think that's the reality of it. I think the infighting, the lack of support, the toxicity, the bitterness within the scene can be a put-off for fans.
It definitely is,
It's not about like, no one's expecting you to buy every release that comes out. No one's expecting you to share everything.
No.
But just having an awareness and like in conversations with people in private, spreading.
Or if you see them out and about,
seeing them out,
to be like, oh, yo, I've seen you. This, that, or whatever.
It's a bit of that side of things, and I know, like back in the day, we had like healthy competition with each other.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It was always supportive.
Absolutely,
and like. When we both stopped doing what we were doing, We Don't Talk to Strangers and Synoptic, it did have like a negative impact on the scene.
It did. I think people stopping doing stuff it's the easy way out stopping, but we had our own reasons, and we've been into that. Like we won't get into it. Like, but I mean, I had millions of reasons, but it's just a point where once that energy, that momentum drops off, we did actually see a massive drop off in the scene, and almost like, and people rose as always with hip hop. People rise out of their ashes of not even the ashes. They don't give a fuck about what came before. They're just doing it. So it's been good to like jump on. I said this at the start of the first podcast when I was interviewing Chill Smith. It's like his fucking beat night that he's been putting on in Leeds, Pairside. It was one of the reasons I got on this, because it's like it's still alive and well. There's still people turning up, still people being safe as hell with each other, sharing their releases, sharing their techniques. You know what I mean? Producers gathering round like while someone's on SP or whatever. I saw J&D came through to one of these to perform his own set night, and he wasn't that au fait with like performing on an SP. Right. So he had like Cell Rock and Chills in his ear going, oh, just this, and that's how you do the AB, and learning off them. And it's like, man, never too late to learn. But it's just such a beautiful thing to still be doing. Like.
It is epic watching the new generation sort of being so unified and so supportive of each other. Yeah. And even like with artists outside of West Yorkshire as well, you know, there seems to be a much more collective attitude towards it than there was previously.
Yeah, fully.
I don't know if I want to say it's less ego driven now, but you know, I think it's good to have the ego there, but you know,
I think there's an age group thing, and I think a lot of us are in this age bracket where the ego isn't that much important to us. It's more important that we're making music and being a part of that, rather than like, oh, people have to be saying I'm amazing now all the time. Whereas when I was young, I was like, people better be talking about my album. Who isn't talking about my album? You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, that's all ego. It doesn't matter if my album's the best or the worst thing in the world. It's like, come on, chill with that. I feel like we're getting there. You've been massively supportive to me. So every time I've slapped a West Yorkshire on anything, my studio, this Synoptic T-shirt from back in the day, this West Yorkshire podcast. Yep. All those things have been with your and Trotter's permission for using the WY logo and stuff. But I've always felt like it's an important thing to have this unifying idea that everyone can represent, because I feel it'll make ripples through the UK and hopefully the rest of the world as well, that shit is popping in West Yorkshire. Completely. For some reason, there's rappers in Bristol, there's rappers in Edinburgh, but it's fucking popping in West Yorkshire.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure what it is round here that makes it slightly different, but there is something that is different about it.
Definitely.
You know? I've never been able to put my finger on it, but we do seem to produce a unusually large group of high caliber artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a strange one, not just with hip hop though, right across the board with the other genres and stuff like that.
I mean, rock's always been, you know, there's always been sick musicians coming out of West York, so plenty of like big names out there that have come through Leeds.
A lot
Bradford.
of the like instrumental, like the dance music scenes and beat scenes and stuff like that. There's some incredible artists about.
100%, and they do tend to. The one thing I will say about them, they do tend to fuck off and not really shed any light back, apart from the fact that it'll just be written at the bottom of like an interview. Oh yeah, I grew up in Bradford, and that'll be all there is to it. There isn't any sort of like, oh yeah, I've been championing this and this guy and these guys coming through. But I guess that's one thing about like success. Sometimes you're so busy that you don't have time to be looking back and shining light back, so you can't feel two ways about it. But like my intention with the whole West Yorkshire thing, like, is that it is a whole reaching thing. I'm explaining it badly, but I've said this a few times, like in record stores up and down the country, there should be in the UK hip hop section a West Yorkshire hip hop section. And that's like a dream of mine to get to that point, and I feel it's achievable, but I feel like we're still missing a lot of links. So I feel like press particularly we're missing links. Now you seem to have done quite well in getting people chatting about your label and your label releases and such. Is that just through advertising and hard graft and knowing the people, or
some of it's from connections? I sort of know people personally at a couple of magazines and whatever else. Other things are just like trying to build that relationship from day one. So like, say Killer Tapes is a good example of that.
They've been chatting recently.
Yeah, so like when they first started putting magazines out and started doing the radio shows, I immediately started buying the magazines, trying to get a dialogue up with Craig, who runs it. Do you know?
Where's he from? Where's he based?
I'm not sure where he's from, but he lives in Lytham St Anne's, I think.
Where the hell's that?
Like up north, further than us.
Oh, right, okay.
And he's just like, he's same sort of attitude to us to this. He's really passionate.
Yep.
It's about building a scene. Obviously for him, it's a a nationwide scene.
Yeah, of course.
He wants to promote the whole thing. He's been massively supportive of Plague. Massively supportive of like Chemistry and people.
I've
like
seen
that,
Escar as well. You're definitely talking about Escar and his recent stuff. Yeah.
He's give us the cover of the magazine for the new Cappo album.
Wow,
so,
nice.
That were like a big thing for us. I can just be quite relentless with places. So like we managed to get the Uber Magnetic album reviewed in the Wire magazine.
Amazing.
So like, I don't believe that we should pigeonhole ourselves and just actually try to promote to hip hop press. Like my attitudes are, so when I do the mail outs, they go to Mojo, they go to NME, they go to literally everywhere that is a music publication that I can find. I hunt down all the smaller publications, the independent magazines and things like that, because I find that if they get behind an artist, they'll push them much harder than some of the other places.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
And I don't know, there can be a lot of that thing where people will approach someone once, not get a bite from them or not get the help, and then they're just like, oh, I'm not sending you my stuff again. And it's just about keeping
on with that. I'm like that.
That first thing might not resonate with them, but
maybe it doesn't.
Maybe something else does further down the line.
What I hate is if something resonated with them in the first place, you feel like you've got an in, and then they ignore you from then on.
Oh, totally.
I've got a few Radio 6 stories that go like that. Yeah. You're like, I'm in. No, I'm not. Yes, fuck. Yeah. But truthfully, I probably should just be pursuing. But then you just feel like they've got you on mute by that point. Do you know what I mean? But I suppose a lot of them, if you send them to NME, they've probably got you on mute, or it's just going in their spam.
It's a tricky one. Like I'll go as far as like targeting the individual writers, because they don't always have the same people doing the reviews. Yeah. And hunt them down on social media.
It's a great shout.
Send them things directly. I'm not shy to send physicals out to people either. Do you know what I mean? Because we put so much effort into the physical products. A good physical product coming through the door, a detailed, original press release, that's got some personality to it, and expresses what you're trying to get across with the album. I think it can open doors. You've just got to be hard at it. Making relationships with DJs is a big one. DJs
still to this day.
They are so like under-recognised in the hip-hop community. We tend to put DJs on the sleeves as featuring artists.
Good.
Where they'll just go in the credits on a lot of other people's things.
The era we grew up in, DJ was God. Breadbinz, they were playing the records they'd collected. It wasn't on Spotify or something. But as soon as stuff like Spotify came in, everyone's got the collection, the worldwide collection of music. So the value went down, but actually they're still incredibly valuable. Like
it's like, to me, even if they're only getting 15, 20 people listening to the show,
it's dedicated.
As soon as you've got 15, 20, 30 different DJs playing tracks from your release, you're getting so much more exposure than you would have done just trying to push it through your own social media. But part of that is building relationships with these people, building relationships with the reviewers. We've found a lot of the reviewers, you send them the goods, they're really thankful to get the physical products because they just get digital from everybody now.
Of course, just get MP3s.
So it just makes you stand out, It's always been done. The big record labels, sending gift packs out to people.
It does make a difference.
It is bribing people.
It's an expensive job because your grassroots, rapper coming through. You can see why, because you were saying the quality of records that some people put out isn't as good as it could be. You can see why. Rapper who's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put like 1,500 quid, $2,000 into a record that's just like that and that. Nothing printed on the inside, and it doesn't look that great. And then not wanting to then post them out because they're 10 quid a pop to them, as
completely.
I
get that, but in the same respect, then you could knock up a cheaper on the CDs.
It's true.
To go with it, send the CDs out. If you're getting a reviewer who's particularly favourable, then send them a copy of the vinyl. I don't know. It's like if you're going to sell out fast, if you're only pressing small numbers and you're going to sell out fast anyway, you get that hype without the need for the other bit so much. And it does happen with certain people, but you can press, we press on vinyl, the pressing plant that's opened up in the UK.
Oh yeah.
They'll press from like 100 copies now.
Okay.
So it's so affordable to do.
Is that who you're doing it through?
No, I
sorry.
work with DMS.
Oh, I do DMS as well. You know,
yeah,
amazing.
Because we go for like so many like little details,
Sexy bits and pieces. They do cater for that pretty well.
They cater for all that really well, and I've worked with them for a lot of years now. So
I've got a good relationship with them.
I know a lot of people who are pressing with Press On, and the quality of the products are great, small numbers, you know, and they're really, really supportive of like indie artists.
Yeah.
They even do like a fair share program where it's a bit like Curates, is it?
Right, yeah, like a crowdfunding kind of vibe.
Yeah, where you can crowdfund through them. But it's all done in the UK.
Amazing.
So, do you know, I think it is called Fair Share.
I need to have a look at that because Curates is on its arse, and and I'm always. There was a time where I just went, you've got some music to put out, you can't afford a vinyl, go on Curates because at least you'll see if there's interest there.
They were doing dodgy shit, and when like records were doing well, they were pressing more of them and selling them on Discogs and stuff. Do you know?
Seriously?
Yeah. There's loads of stories.
I didn't know that. I knew that there was once Brexit came in, they had loads of problems shipping and stuff just got stuck here and there because they had to pay for it to be moved and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't realise they were pressing extras to sell them. That's so naughty.
Like they'd have the. On their website, they'd have the releases that were doing the best. And even though they'd always be sold out with the artists, you could always find them from Discog sellers in the country where they're based. And it's just like...
lizards, man.
Yeah. It's snaky, but bootlegging
you.
became a big thing again recently because of like Griselda and stuff and, you know, Dope and them releasing such limited records with massive... demand.
Yeah.
So like 300 records with 20,000 people wanting it. It just like it made the bootleggers come out of the woodwork. You know?
Yeah. Suddenly loads of stuff's getting pressed up like it was in the 90s or whatever. Like mad. What's the so with Plague then? Have you got a vision of like what the future's looking like? Is it? And are you going to continue within hip hop? Because you were already saying you want it. Yeah, it's always going to be kind of hip hop and that sort of stuff.
It's going to be a hip hop label.
And is it about it having that kind of darker sound as well?
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. Like
happily put some breakbeat, happy time, fun time, down soul shit.
It's more like. The UK artists we work with, I feel, have all got their own complete niche in UK hip hop, like Cappo, Disprol.
100%.
I know Uber Magnetics are an international group because Roughneck Jihad's from Los Angeles, you know, so from California. So it's like they're a bit of an anomaly on the label, but that relationship came about through Junior Disprol being a long-time collaborator with him.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I look for people. I describe it as having something extra. I want people to have their complete niche in it. So like, I know I've mentioned WY artists to you that I'd like to work with, you know, in the past. But like, I have a list of artists that I still want to work with.
Yeah.
Originally, there were 3 artists, and none of them were West Yorkshire that I wanted to put out. So there were Disprol, Cappo, and then King Kashmir.
Oh, okay. And how are you getting on with the third one?
I've not even approached him yet.
Oh, fair play.
He's produced on one of the Cappo albums.
Okay, that's it.
So do you know?
So some way there, some of the way there.
And he's got connections to both of those artists. So do you know?
I feel like he's catchable for like an EP or an album.
Yeah,
or something,
I hope it'll happen one day. But like, you know, he does most of his stuff with High Focus. So that'd make total sense for he wouldn't want to work with a smaller label, do you know?
Yeah, I get it.
But like, you know, I don't know. I talk about this a lot with my wife about people from the local area. Like, I know you self-release stuff, but you would be a perfect candidate because I feel that you have a total niche in UK hip hop. No one's doing the sound you're doing.
Sick.
It's completely like unique to you, basically. So, you know,
I'll take that.
It's that I'm looking for.
Sick.
Like, I refer to it as the extra.
Yeah, I dig that.
It's just something that's a little bit more, someone who knows their own mind with the music. And
that's a massive compliment, man. There's a few others, and I've spoken to you about the list. I think there's a couple more that you could mention as well.
Well, like I don't mind saying the names.
Let's have it. It's a podcast.
I'd love to put a Hashfinger record out.
Okay.
Jack Dan's is someone else. You know,
gotta happen.
I think you all sort of. Again, you all have your own lane, totally.
Yeah.
And it's that attracts me to an artist.
Yeah.
I get a lot of stuff submitted to the label, and like so much of it is dope.
Yeah.
but it just doesn't.
Is it Dubwise submissions or
no,
UK wide?
Not really. No,
mad.
No one from Dubwise really submitted anything. Like me and Escar have talked in the past. Me
Yeah.
and Murray P have talked in the past.
Yeah.
But like, other than that, it's people from across the country. Even international artists now.
Sick.
Since we released Uber Magnetic, we do get quite a bit of like alternative US acts approaching us.
Any care packages? Sending you physicals on that?
No, not yet. No. So,
this is what I could.
You see, that would go much further. To
course, if someone was like, "This is my last vinyl, I want you to put on the next one," you'd be like, "Yeah, boy."
Well, someone who's willing to invest in the self, I know that they're going put what needs to be put into the project, because it isn't about just making music and putting the music out. It's the most important part of it, but it's a tiny proportion of it. It's like, we try to put loads into the video side of things, into the promotion leading up to the release, the promotion after the release.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a strong believer that you should promote a release for at least 12 months after you've put it out.
At the very least,
At the very least.
Yeah.
And we do still try to push the releases we put out in 2019 when the label
100%.
started. It's
the amount of people I'll be like, I mean, I'm just coming up to 12 months now, I think, since my last album, and the amount of people who'll be like, "Oh, I didn't even know this was out," and you're like, "How the fuck? How are we? How has that happened?"
It's
like, they'll be
shocking.
in my fucking social network. You know what I mean? It's mental.
Every junior disc roll drop we get people, because everyone knew him from Fleepit, from the rapper from Fleepit.
Okay.
So a lot of people haven't twigged that it's him as a solo artist.
I see.
So even when we did Def Cult earlier this year, we're still getting people that are only just working out. He's putting new music out, and that were like number 4.
Yeah.
Number 5, in fact. 5 albums in a row since 2019.
Yeah.
So.
And then one thing to bear in mind is the fact that we're all like going back and listening through the 90s catalogue of artists that we didn't even know existed, that are sick as fuck.
Totally,
and that'll happen to us in 2030, 2040.
Yeah.
People will be like, "Oh shit, they had shit going on," even though not a lot of people were paying attention to X, Y, and Z artists. Like, they'll be,
100%.
you know what I mean? So it's always important to get your
I fully
music out.
believe that the market's there for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just connecting to them. And rather than helping you do that, I think, in honesty, the internet's a hindrance. It's really difficult to get the reach out, which is why we've started doing stuff like the Hidden Content Club.
That's cool, that.
Where, like,
talk to me about the Hidden Content Club, because I hadn't seen that much about it, ironically. Well, not ironically.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the basic idea. The two concepts in my mind were the 1980s mail order catalogues you used to get, where you could buy jerks and stuff, like, little hand buzzers and, stink bombs and stuff.
Right.
That you used to get through the post. You had to fill in the coupon.
Yep.
And you mail ordered the stuff with like a postal order or a check.
Yeah.
Then there were like the early hip hop distributors who did like the Rough, Dave the Rough. And,
yeah, of course.
And they ran full like mail order hip hop businesses, and that in itself created a scene, because all the people who were ordering had start speaking to each other.
When I first saw that, I thought it was a joke. You know, like the handsome boy modelling school. They're not handsome boys in a modelling school. It's a fucking music. Then when I saw the secret thing, I was like, that's not what it is, though. Because in my mind, I thought, but it is. You've actually created a mail order thing. And it seems like there's good interest.
Oh, yeah, totally. So basically what we did was anybody who'd physically ordered a product through the website, I had their address. Right. So without telling anybody, we sent them out. I think the first one was for Uber Magnetic. So it had this logo as a fridge magnet.
Sick.
It had a vinyl sticker. It had a leaflet describing the release, which had a free download to an exclusive single that wasn't included on the album. And then when you
listening? This is great
when you
marketing.
went to the hidden website, you had the option of buying lathe cut 7-inch vinyl of the single, or cassette singles, which were limited to like 20 and 50 pieces.
Yeah.
So it was all done under the radar. You couldn't access it if you'd not previously bought something off the label.
How many people did you post to, bro?
The first time it were nearly 200. By the time we went to the second, it got to about 350.
Because I've thought about doing it before. I've thought about doing stuff like this, because obviously I've got a lot of addresses, and I thought about posting, and I looked at the cost of just
it's insane.
even sending a second-class postcard to these motherfuckers.
Pence, it's
so
like,
it's suddenly you're like, it's cheaper Facebook advertising. I'm not going to do that.
Well, the reason we did it, like, I was paying for Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising, and I figured I'd use some of that budget and try to do this. Like, the artists I've done it with have been really into the idea, so they don't make any money off the 7-inch and the cassette, and they fund the postage and the printing costs.
Amazing.
So that it's self-contained.
So now it's making its own money back.
It costs
like
me nothing to do it.
Amazing.
But it's like that getting something out, they come out in black envelopes just with a plague sticker on the back. So they look ominous when they come through the door. And they have impact coming. They look different to the normal post. So people got really into it, and then everyone's posting pictures online, and it.
And it's a secret.
You know
What's this hidden thing? As soon as people think they can't get it, they want it, innit?
Getting all the messages from people. What's this? What's this? How do I get on board with this? And
beautiful marketing, brother.
So we just thought that were a cool idea, but we're from that generation of the old mail order catalogues. I used to buy all my hip hop music through mail order catalogues.
Suspect packages.
Charge in York, suspect packages. You know. So it's sort of taking their ideas and, like I say, the little joke and toy catalogues that came through the post. And just mashing that with the label. So it's worked really, really well so far.
Amazing. And that's sort of plugged into Plague in a clever way. And also it allows you to like almost tease artists, I guess. If you were going to do an art album that someone that wasn't as well known a name as Cappo, you know what I mean? You can do a 7 for that, and
you can test the waters with it. You can do limited releases. Like, we've got plans to release like mixtapes through there and stuff that won't come out on the main label.
Dope.
Because everything on the main label is always vinyl and cassette.
Sometimes
CD if the artist wants it. Like, I'm not a massive fan of the format, but
no,
you know,
I agree. I'm not a massive fan of tapes, to be honest, but there is a big resurgence of them. I've never put a tape
pretty much sell out tapes every time.
How many did you put out on a release?
We press 50 every time.
Yeah, okay, so that's
we do
a reasonable
about 10
number.
promo.
I did a gig the other day, and I had CDs and records, and some guy was like, "Oh, have you got any tapes?" I'm like, "Mother."
They always want what you haven't got, though.
What is this? Got to walk around with tapes, CDs, vinyls, T-shirts, stickers.
Like T-shirts are the best one, I think, merchandise-wise. I think, you know.
You got a Plague T-shirt out?
No, we did when I did the Zombles art toys.
I love them. Yeah, I've got them in my studio.
Junior Disprol designed a T-shirt to go with them, so we did that as a limited pre-order.
Right.
And then we just did the Uber Magnetic one with that release.
So that's a Plague merchandise T-shirt, effectively.
Yeah, not branded or anything like I'd like to. It was sort of a last-minute thing, but it is definitely. I've got the designs ready.
I think just the logo as well, just for start, start for 10, innit? Just to be able to represent it. It would be cool for because I mean, there's artists out there who don't have merchandise. I was talking to Obi Joe on the podcast. I always talk about Obi Joe on this podcast, sorry. But I was talking to him and he was like, well, I don't have any merchandise. And it's like, fucking bang your name on a T-shirt and fucking put it on Bandcamp already. Because I'd like to be walking around with Obi Joe. I'd like other people to be walking around with a Plague. And if everyone in Dubway was repping other people's merch, again, it's so good for the branding. 100%. And you're helping the artists, you're helping the scene grow. So we should all have our own T-shirts and our own names on our T-shirts. Definitely. And not be wearing them ourselves. Like me walking around with an XP T-shirt is the saddest thing in the world.
I don't know though, representing yourself I think is important.
It can be cool, I've spent a lot of time with hoodies and shit with my fucking name on there, and homemade and my logo on and stuff like that.
You've been ridiculous. On that from day one though.
I'm big on branding.
So,
I've got no branding marketing background, but I'm obsessed with branding, logos, getting it to look right. You know what I mean? Creating
that's
a vibe.
my thing as well, and I think that's where I get the creative buzz from now, which allows me to not worry too much about making music as much as I used to do.
I see.
I get the same sort of hit from it.
It's funny, innit? And it's because even the Flame Gorilla logo, people still go on about that as being an iconic thing. And at the time we did it, time it was done, we were chuffed with it. But it was strange how people were like, "Oh, this is the," you know what I mean? And and the same with, and I wanted to come back to West Yorkshire, the Y logo. It's something that's just simple. But people are like, "Oh, that's sick," you know what I mean? And it just gets the job done really well. Loads of Y tattoos. There's one there.
Masses of them,
And enough people have got it. So,
I think I'm one of the few people without one.
You haven't got a tattoo, have you?
No, not a single one.
Well, once you pop, you can't stop, bro. Right, so I want to talk about West Yorkshire and the future of it, because it will. By the time this is out, people will know. But the day that we're recording this, the first T-shirts are going to drop since 2000 and...
Yeah, it's nearly a decade.
Is it nearly a decade since
yeah.
you last put some stuff out? Mental. And it was doing it. So back in 2012, 13-ish, and around the time of the Cypher, it seemed to be doing well, and you had all sorts of designers doing all sorts of different vibes of it. Why did you stop it at the time? Was it just time and effort?
It were mainly, from my part, it were personal reasons. Like, my dad got cancer, passed away from that. My mum got dementia, passed away from there. You know, my health were bad with the epilepsy and stuff. You know, I had a period of mental health decline. So it was just like I had to get myself back on my feet. For like, I've got 4 kids and I'm married, and you know, that had to take precedent. So like, you know, me and Trotter constantly talked about doing it. You know, every year we'd have a chat.
About sacking it? Oh, no, about doing it, since sacking it, right, yeah.
Let's do it again. And, you know, other aspects of your life take priority, you know.
Of course.
I know you've like always kept on at me. We need to do it, we need to do it.
For years now, I
for
feel
years,
like I've been going, we're doing more, you're doing some good work.
You're responsible for it happening now, because like when I got that message from you, it were like, it were quite, you know, I use the word assertive, but it was quite a pushy message, do you know what I mean?
Are you fucking doing this, bro?
Yeah, and I remember seeing it, and at first I read the message and I'm like, fuck you, do you know, how dare you, do you know, to be that pushy with me? The scene needs it, what are you going to do about it?
Yes!
And then sort of like, I'm in slightly different circles now, and everyone is sort of doers. So like I was just like, do you know what? This is the right fucking time to do this.
Yeah.
It's time to stop procrastinating. It's time to, you know,
big the fuck up.
Make it happen. So like we stayed in touch from that point. I kept hassling Trotter. Eventually we managed to get it together.
Yep.
He was excited about it as, you know, we were. So it was just like, it's, I hope now we can make it bigger than it ever was, you know.
That's the hope in it. I feel like we're going to have to get some infrastructure, and we almost, I shouldn't be saying this out loud, we almost need the Cypher or something like the Cypher. I've got my WY Wednesday night, which is like the hip-hop social, and there's other great hip-hop nights, and as I said, Pairside and stuff like that are great hip. But something like the Cypher, just, it was that peek behind the curtain, because there was a lot of fucking around in between the freestyles, and it's that guy, and he's spitting some bars now, and that guy's, you know, just seeing that guy smoking a joint in a corner was as big as, you know, the guy spitting a verse or whatever, and that kind of thing's really cool, but it's so work intensive. It requires so much effort and so much editing and all that I just, like, personally, I haven't got the financial time for, like, if there was a way to be able to, you know, monetize that, it would be possible, but like it's I haven't figured that out yet, but it's something that it needs in order to blow it up more, because obviously I'd want these t-shirts, and luxury industry problem aside, I'd want these t-shirts that you're about to put out to blow, and then us to be able to, you know, move on to hoodies, hats, the whole 9 yards in it. But it's like, it's all about how much interest is, you know, garnered from it.
Like the initial stuff from sort of the initial social media bits we've put out advertising it has been like unbelievably good.
Yeah.
The response has been as good as it used to be.
Nice.
I've got I don't want to jinx it, but I've got a sneaking suspicion the first t-shirt at least will be gone in a very short space of time. We've already got plans for, like, you know, diversifying the range. We've been talking about like skateboard decks. You know, I've got a really good connection for doing them. So the decks have been made in West Yorkshire.
That'll be
so the whole thing would be a West Yorkshire deck. You know, which would be amazing. We're already looking into the hoodies, hats. Like we did the New Era snapbacks before. But I'd really love to do New Era fitted caps. Yeah. But it's sort of quite a small gateway, and you have to get New Era's approval. So I'm on with all that at the moment.
Yeah. I feel like you'll be the guy to pull that off, man. You'll have the contact, or you'll make the contact.
It's a time-consuming process, because you're dealing with people in another country. You're small fry to them.
Of course.
So, like, it is a bit of persistence to get people to talk to you. But, you know, like, we've been trying to do that for the Cappo release. We've got Cappo merchandising coming.
Nice.
And hopefully including hats. So that's sort of my gateway in there with the WY stuff.
Good, yeah.
It's quite difficult because they're very up on copyright, and the logo, although it's developed a lot from looking like the Yankees logo, there is obviously still a resemblance.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But they did do the Zoo Yorkshire hats. And there's another flip of that. So
there must
be an avenue in there somewhere. But, you know, we'll keep pushing away with it. So
nice, man. Well, I feel like 2024 for me was like, fuck it, community time. It's all about getting West Yorkshire back going and doing as much work as I can do to try and connect all the dots that need connecting and you know, support people doing their thing.
Yep.
And I feel like I've given you, you were already working your ass off with Plague, and I've given you a big mandate to do the same now with like the WY merch and all the rest of it. So, but I feel like, you know, the future's bright if the community can pull together and keep making sick music and all the rest of it.
100%. And like, I know, can we talk about the compilations?
Brother, let's talk about the compilations.
Right,
I'm
so,
excited about these.
Yeah, so you came up with the idea of doing compilation albums, and like we ummed and ahed about format, but both of us love vinyl.
Yeah.
So like the idea would be in sort of following on from the original WY compilation album from back in the day. It'd be like better versions of that, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe artists curating the acts on there.
Maybe different genres as well. Like Chemistry seemed very eager when we briefly spoke about it to be involved in the curation sort of element of that.
The different genre thing would be amazing if we could like tap into different scenes and get sort of a figurehead to represent their scene.
Yeah, could you imagine, for example, freaking Dialect curating like a grime-esque WY vinyl album? Do you know what I mean? It'd be amazing,
it'd be
man.
Next level. And I think there's going to be a positive response to that, because obviously, you know, it's less of a financial burden for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So it is trying to make it, again, you know, like there has to be money involved, and there has to be a little bit of profit to be able to keep on doing more stuff and, you know, to expand what we are doing. But like, you know, I don't think that's the focus of it in my mind.
No.
I don't think it is in yours. It's
no,
more just, you know,
it's about it happening. I'm not looking for a payout from this, man. I'm looking for it to happen. But at the same time, you don't want to be like, well, I put 20 grand into West Yorkshire last year and I'm completely broke.
It's finding that balance in it. But I think that will definitely happen. I think we're going to have to get these compilation albums going. So
you and me, bro, we'll smash the fuck out of this.
Yeah, totally.
Bane, this has been a joy. You're a sick guy, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Love you, man. Big up. So there he is, Bane, absolute hero. I loved spending time with him there. It was just great to chat. We don't actually kick it as much as we should, considering all our history and all our dealings together. And it was just cool to just get in the middle of Yorkshire Sculpture Park and talk through everything. Really hope you enjoyed it. Please go support his music and his label, and please go and cop yourself some WY merch. Until next time, big up.